Hello and welcome again to a thrilling episode of Time of Death.
Hello.
I'm your host, Ris.
And I'm Dee.
And we are two nurses that like to talk true crime, and we like to focus on cases that have a heavy medical influence to them or cases that feature a medical professional as the victim and perpetrator. So for this case, it just so happens that the victim and the perpetrator were both medical professionals.
Freaky. Wait, I have a serious question before we move forward.
Sure.
Do you have that spiel memorized in your head?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Well, we've said it. This will be our 38th time saying
times. It. Yeah, you're just rattling it off, and I'm like, damn, when I try to rattle something off, it always comes out weird.
Well, today I started with it, but without my little intro.
Bum, 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 bum. I'm going to start humming an intro. I'm going to start ad-libbing an intro.
Well, we have our beep, 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 beep. Time of death.
What? I can't do
What? Get the code card.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say.
That's what I
figured. Don't work in that setting.
The other day we were painting because I'm moving into a new apartment, and we were painting the walls, and I spilled some paint on the ground. So I said, "Paper towels, stat."
Oh my god. I know you did not say that to me because I would have pushed you into the paint.
I said it's our brother and
the biomed engineer.
He
was like, "What?"
But they brought it to me, but I didn't see it. I said stat. Paper towel, stat.
You're such a brat.
Anyway, so here we go.
I said stat.
I said stat. Did I stutter?
Did I stutter?
Did I stutter?
Stat means yesterday.
So just want to make a quick little disclaimer. This case is awaiting trial. The perpetrator has not yet been convicted of the crimes we are going to be discussing. Everything that we are going to discuss is done through our own research and speculation.
Wait, hold on. So this is going to be a case that's a hot case.
This is a hot case. You know what? There's like a lot of news on this case. I haven't heard of many people covering this case, though. This case happened last year in August 2023. Mm-hmm. And the perpetrator, we'll get into who that is awaiting trial right now. So Connor Bowman was a 30-year-old doctor at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. He actually just completed his residency there.
Gotta love residents, man.
Gotta love them.
I do love my little residents.
I do too. So when he completed his residency, he just started working as a poison control specialist at the University of Kansas. And that is important to remember.
I feel like that's weird, right?
Poison control specialist?
Yeah.
Well, you gotta think about it. You need doctors in that role so they could tell you, like when someone comes in and they overdose or like an accidental ingestion, we utilize poison control, and they like follow up with us at increments to see how the patient's doing, suggest new testing for us to complete. Oh, wow. And they're like, okay, well, these are the expected signs and symptoms. Make sure you get an EKG, like check these labs. It's kind of like a cool resource. And now when someone comes in on an overdose, for example, on opiates, poison control has to be alerted. Which I think is a relatively new thing.
That's interesting.
And EMS usually contacts them before they come into the ED. And then we usually get a call from poison control. And anytime somebody comes in on an overdose, usually poison control will call us and follow up with them, or follow up about them with us.
That is really interesting. So they just are like, Narcan them?
They Narcan them, but if indicated, but they also will let poison control know.
Well, everything is laced with stuff now, so it makes sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you never know. They probably are more in tune with, this is commonly laced with this.
Yeah, no, they're definitely a good resource, and I wasn't really surprised with them employing a doctor for their services. But anyway, so he's working at the University of Kansas in that role. He wasn't a very social person, and he was described as not having very many friends. His wife, Betty Bowman, was a 32-year-old operating room pharmacist, and she worked at Mayo Clinic as well. So, in contrast to her husband, Connor, Betty was really friendly. She had a lot of close friends. She was close with her family. Her friend described her as being the most calm person ever.
I wish I had that.
You can be calm sometimes.
I can be calm. In my personal life, I'm not very calm, but professionally.
You got that calm.
Unless I'm having an off day.
Yeah, it really depends. It
That's
depends
not
on
true.
what's going on.
I don't know, actually, because sometimes I'm like, what the hell did I do to myself?
People have told me I'm calm before, and I'm like, yeah,
Where?
maybe on the outside, but on the inside, I'm like
Trembling.
I'm so anxious on the inside.
No, you always look calm.
Yeah, I look calm. I'm not calm.
Just internalize
It's that internal panic. So Betty was also described as being assertive. She knew how to stand up for herself, which also is a very valuable trait as well.
Yeah, I like Betty.
Connor describes Betty as intelligent and that said that she had a good work ethic. So the two of them married in Independence, Missouri in 2021. And 2 years later in 2023, Connor and Betty were in an open marriage. Betty wasn't ready for kids, unlike her husband Connor, and the two had agreed to an open marriage for physical intimacy, but the two agreed that there would be no emotional attachment between any, extramarital partners.
So for two people that are pretty smart people, this is a really dumb move.
Well, it can work for some people, but not.
I tell you, maybe my nature is to be a jealous little witch, but I've never heard of it working out in a good way.
I think sometimes people can do it. I mean, every marriage is different. Every relationship is different. But I think for this, we'll get into why. And I think Betty was a very mature partner. And I do not think Connor was, but we'll get into this.
I'll tell you right now. I think that in theory, it's like very like free love, 70s vibe, hippie love, yada, yada, yada. At the end of the day, it creates a lot of animosity. Like the dynamic already in a marriage is like tough. Like you have a lot of stressors, but when you add people to your relationship, I just feel like it's gonna 90% of the I don't want to. And if you are a follower and you're hearing this and you're hearing me bash polygamy, feel free to chime in and give us your own experience. We would, we're always looking to learn, and I'm always curious.
Yeah,
just skeptical.
So Betty was bisexual, so she's dating both men and women that she got to know in real life. While Connor kind of took the online approach, he would use dating apps and he would hook up with women he met online. Again, Betty was a good communicator and she really valued honesty, but Connor wasn't so good in that department. He was often dishonest about who he was dating. So Betty was growing irritated with Connor and his secrets. She's not upset he's sleeping with other people. She's upset that he wasn't being honest with her. Like, you can sleep. Her thinking is, you can sleep with other people. Like, you can follow what we agreed to, but don't lie to me about it. And Connor just kept lying.
That's like a lot of, I'm going to play devil's advocate. Maybe he feels like he has his own emotional, you know what I mean? Like, he may not be lying because he's trying to be sneaky. He could be lying because it makes him really uncomfortable.
Maybe it does.
Like telling your wife, like, oh yeah, I banged these 3 chicks last night.
That could have been it.
Just playing devil's advocate. Maybe he wasn't trying to be a real jerk.
I think we'll get into like more detail about why he was lying about it. But I do think he didn't want Betty to know how often he was seeing other women. He didn't want her to know how serious his relationships were getting with other people. Because remember, they agreed physical intimacy only.
Oh, yeah. Well, everyone has their own opinions about sex. But, inherently, it is a very intimate act. it's like chemically you're going to have some kind of connection with that other person.
Yeah, that's true, but we'll see what happens. Don't worry, Dee.
I sound like such a prude. Like, here I am. What's wrong with those people?
I think that there's like obviously some level of emotional connection that just comes with it naturally, but I think they more so agreed like our marriage is still the most important thing. Nothing should match up to like this level of connection that we have together. Dee's like, I don't understand.
Maybe I just, in my own space, like in my own perspective, I can't get out of my own way. But it just don't make sense to me.
Okay, so let's move on. So Sarah Leeser was Betty's best friends. The two met when they were in high school in Wichita, Kansas, and they quickly became best friends. Sarah said that Betty was getting worried about one of the women that Connor was interested in, and Sarah mentioned that Betty felt like he was obsessed with this new partner, noting that their relationship was more serious than what the two had agreed on. So she's like, okay, this is getting way too intense. At this point, Sarah was dating a man and a woman in August, while Connor was getting more and more involved in this new romance. Connor lied to Betty about them meeting up, saying he was working, while Connor and this partner were actually just on a date. At one point, Connor and his girlfriend break up, and he was distraught, and he wanted this partner back. And Betty noticed this, and she was really just put off by it. So their relationship was struggling. They wanted separate things at this time. Connor was lying, and Betty did not like how things were changing. Friends started offering to let Betty stay with them at this point, and Betty is also considering a divorce because of his dishonesty. On August 15th, Betty had plans to meet up with a friend, but Connor made Betty an alcoholic drink, a little drinky drink, and Betty cancels her plans to stay home with Connor. So the two of them spend the night together. Betty goes to bed, but she wakes up at 2 a.m., and she is super sick. She is so weak she cannot walk. So she goes to the ER. Betty texts Sarah that she was having horrible diarrhea. She said, I have no idea what's going on. I'm scared. So Sarah was actually in Missouri on vacation at this time, but once Betty texted her, she rushed back home to see her. So Sarah makes it to the hospital, and Connor is at the bedside. Betty was described as being weak, and she was losing consciousness by the time Sarah got there. So basically, she was probably in shock at this time because she lost so much fluid through all of her copious amounts of diarrhea. Connor from the get-go was like, listen, I am a doctor. I know what is wrong with her. And he basically tells anyone who will listen. It is I don't even know how to pronounce this. It is hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis or HLH.
Oh my God.
So HLH is a rare disorder that is inherited in babies. So if both of your parents are carriers of HLH, you as their carriers, meaning they don't actually have the disorder, they just carry the trait for the disorder. You as their hypothetical baby have a 25% chance of having this diagnosis.
It just sounds fishy.
It gets fishier.
Because, it's just childhood illness. All of a sudden, she's 30-something years old, and all of a sudden, it comes on. Right at the time, he's struggling with a little pity party breakup.
So, it's not only hereditary, it can also sometimes happen in adults too. But typically it's caused by either an infection, like for example, the Epstein-Barr virus, or cancer.
Then he should say, she has mononucleosis. That would sound, I would probably be like, oh, wow, he's a doctor. But this rare, very bizarre, I've never heard of that before. I've heard of mono. I have not heard of HLH. So I would be a little like, that's weird.
So basically with HLH, your immune system isn't protecting you like it should be. Your white blood cells attack other cells in your body, and your abnormal blood cells accumulate in your spleen and liver, and these organs grow large as a result. Other symptoms of HLH include swollen lymph nodes, jaundice, which is yellowing of the eyes and skin, respiratory symptoms, weakness, headache, visual changes, and, shocker, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Just like Betty. So just because Connor is hell-bent on Betty carrying this diagnosis does not mean that Betty actually has this disorder, right, Dee?
Absolutely.
HLH is diagnosed through blood work, physical exam, and history of the patient. These patients will have an enlarged spleen and liver. The doctor usually palpates these organs, feeling the body and seeing if they feel enlarged. Their white blood cell counts will be low. Actually, all of their blood cells, including their platelets, will be low because your white blood cells are killing off other cells.
Yikes.
Everything is going to look wonky, and they help the doctors make their diagnosis. But doctors are saying, okay, sit down, Connor. It's not HLH. Like, just chill.
Go back to poison control, Connor.
Sarah leaves at the end of the night with a little joke. And Sarah said that Betty softly squeezed her hand, and Sarah took that as a good sign. Connor had also told Betty's family members that she was hospitalized, so they were at the bedside as well. And Connor was telling them too, it's HLH. Listen, guys, it's HLH.
What a freaking...
Her mom, Nancy, didn't know what HLH was, but this was her son-in-law. It's a person she trusts. He's a doctor. He knows best, so she believed him, which I don't blame him for. When you have someone that you love and trust, and you know that they're qualified,
and it's
yeah,
it's very scary too.
Yeah, you don't know what's going on with your daughter, so you are like, okay, that makes sense to me.
Well, when I had pneumonia a couple years back now, I was convinced because I had just taken Bactrim that I had meningitis, asymptomatic, or something meningitis. And I was telling Ris, I have meningitis, which is very serious. But Ris said, Dee, you have pneumonia. But I was very high temp. I was probably a little hypoxic, which is low oxygen. And I'm a little whacked at baseline.
I can vouch for that.
So I could not understand, but Ris really calmed me down, and Dr. G.
I love Dr. G. He's treated all of us now, every member of my family, including me at this point.
But you trust your loved one, even when you're convinced it's something totally else. So that's a huge betrayal.
It is a huge betrayal. Betty is admitted, and she is in the ICU at this point. And the next day, Betty goes to the OR for emergent surgery to have part of her colon taken out because she had necrotic tissue or dead tissue. Her symptoms are getting worse. She's suffering cardiac complications. She has fluid buildup in her lungs, and her organs are failing her. Betty dies 3 days later on August 20th, 2023.
Oh my God.
I know. And it's shocking because her family was like, okay, she's young. Like when she initially went to the ER, they're like, okay, she's young. Like nothing's wrong with her. Like she's a healthy 32-year-old woman. Mm-hmm. They weren't expecting the severity of this.
I was not either.
No. So Connor was described as being pretty calm when she died. Connor, after she died, did the least suspicious thing ever and asked the ME to cremate her body ASAP. And the ME is like,
no.
Betty's like a healthy young woman. Her death was sudden. This was just bizarre. Sometimes families want to find out, like, okay, what caused my loved one's death? Like
HLH?
Some, just as a side note here, some cultures and religions have differing beliefs regarding autopsies. Some cultures object to them, which is perfectly understandable, but it seemed like Connor was really pushing for, okay, cremate her now. Don't waste time. I need the evidence gone now. Like, Who needs an autopsy?
I hope Betty haunted his ass.
Let me tell you what it is, medical examiner. It's HLH.
Betty probably is there whispering in the Emmys. He's a damn liar. Don't listen to his ass. Don't listen to it. He's lying.
Oh my God.
But you know what? I'll tell you. Dr. K. Scarpetto
Oh God.
also would have not fallen for that.
Mm-mm.
He just is like if you're going to do something, like, don't be so obvious.
Oh, just freaking wait, Dee, because this is a very
Well,
bizarre. Like, some of the things that goes on in this case is just bizarre.
he's just a freaking, he's a terrible, I gotta feel it in my bones he did it. I feel it in my bones.
Well, he's awaiting trial, so
Or maybe Betty
this is just our
whispering.
personal opinion. So the day after her death, the Emmys office gets a call from an anonymous number, and they tell the ME, listen, Betty's death was suspicious. It occurred right after an argument over infidelity and a possible divorce.
Sarah. That's Sarah.
So the Emmys office is like, okay, this is really weird, and they tell investigators this. Connor took a $500,000 life insurance policy out on Betty before her death.
Oh my God.
So Betty and Connor had been keeping separate finances due to the fact that Connor had a lot of debt,
How much?
a significant amount. Connor mentions to Sarah that he was getting $500,000 as a result of her death. And Sarah mentions that he tells her this several times. I kind of get the idea, like, you know, when someone's super excited about something and they just blurt it out.
Yeah.
I think that's really what was happening. And he just blurted it out unintentionally. And Sarah's like, you already told me this. Like, also, that's really weird to tell me. Like,
Yeah.
shady. Sarah tells Connor Betty would have used some of the money to support her family and sends Christmas or birthday presents to her loved ones. Like, just so you know, Connor, this is what I think her intentions would be with that money.
Connor's
if you
not
want to
doing
use it
that.
for that.
Connor's not doing that.
So Sarah also recalls Connor being enthusiastic and excited about his new girlfriend.
They got back together?
A couple days after Betty died, Connor invites Sarah over to pack up some of Betty's things. He's like, Sarah, is it cool if I bring my girlfriend? And Sarah's like, okay, sure. Sarah says, it was weird, but I was also curious about this.
Yeah, I absolutely would have been too.
So Sarah comes over and notices that all of the photos with Betty in them are taken down from the walls. And the three of them are hanging out. And then Connor is like, let's go to Four Daughters Vineyard in Spring Valley. It's a winery. So they all go. And of course, his new girlfriend comes too. Sarah said that the two of them were cuddling, kissing, and very affectionate.
How many days after Sarah's death was this?
Like a few days.
I freaking... Whoo! That's a bold move.
Yeah.
That's bold. There's a lot
Very
of bold
bold.
moves. That is bold.
Yep. So they all go back to Connor's house and Sarah goes home, leaving Connor with his girlfriend. So Sarah's getting suspicious, obviously. She's thinking Connor and this new girl are getting serious. What if he wanted to start off fresh with his new girlfriend, debt-free?
That is a motive if I've ever heard one.
So Sarah recalls that Connor was happy, or at least indifferent, in the days following Betty's death. She's just getting a weird vibe from this whole thing. At Betty's funeral, Connor made it very clear how much he loved Betty. They had a special, beautiful marriage. Everything was loving. Nothing was wrong at home. Connor used photos only of the two of them, basically shoving their love into people's faces to say, nothing shady going on here. We were like fated lovers. Like, it's all cool. And
Oh my God.
side note, there were no photos of Betty growing up or photos of her with her family, which I just want to say, If that ever happened to me, if I died and my spouse didn't utilize photos of me growing up, well, kind of me growing up, because I'd want that on display, but also photos of me with my loved ones, I would be pissed.
Betty must be boiling.
I'd be pissed.
Yeah, I would be
because
pissed
really,
too.
you're just gonna amount me to just be your partner. That's all I was. You're not gonna like, what about my relationships with other people? What about my accomplishments? What about big things that I did?
Oh, I would be doing all kinds. I would be like a freaking poltergeist.
I would come back. Really? Like, you killed me, but also you didn't like give anyone any closure like about my death, any like final moments with me. I would be pissed. Dee, for sure, like if I thought of anyone coming back to haunt someone else, I know it would be Dee coming back.
I better have a peaceful ending because it's not gonna be pretty if I don't.
Oh my god.
I better be like 99 years old, have a little less pep in my step, a little less fire in my belly, because I'm gonna spew freaking flames everywhere.
She's too feisty. She's too feisty.
Truly, I would haunt that ass.
I know you would. On August 22nd, this is 2 days after her death, Connor's coworker finds out that he had retained a lawyer. And also, wouldn't you know, the life insurance payout was already received at this point. Investigators are like, okay, we agree, this is shady. They start looking into Connor, and him and his girlfriend break up pretty quickly. Sarah said that she thought the girlfriend assumed Betty died of natural causes, and she was starting to feel bad, and she probably also got weirded out. Investigators also are reaching out to some of Betty's friends, including Sarah, which really pissed off Connor, and he started calling her friends, including Sarah, and asking them what the investigators wanted. What info? Tell me, what did they say? No biggie, but like, can you just tell me exactly what they said? I think he was thinking with his bank account because, okay, here's my 2 cents on this. Betty was ready for a divorce. Like, if he just wanted to be with this other woman, he could have been. But he wanted, in my personal opinion, he wanted the money. He wanted to be debt free, and he wanted to, what's the phrase? Get his cake and eat it too. Is that the phrase?
Yeah, I think it is.
Get the cake and also eat it.
I love you like a fat kid loves cake.
You always say that. I love you too, Dee, but thank you for that. But is that the phrase really?
Yeah.
Get the cake and eat it too?
Have the cake. You want to have your cake.
Have the cake and eat it too. But like, why wouldn't you eat it if you have it in the first place? Like, that just seems like one task instead of 2. Anyway, all right. Where was I with this? Oh, yes. So what I think happened was he just really wanted to get that cash out and move on because he was done with his marriage. He was like, all right, well, I can get a divorce. I can, move on and not be with Betty anymore. But also I can benefit from her death. An anonymous source from the University of Kansas, where Connor worked, reaches out to police and is like, listen, Connor is very familiar with poisons. Remember, again, he was a poison specialist. And he also told police that Connor had been researching colchicine lately. Colchicine is a medication to treat gout.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Doesn't that have to do something with the cells? It kills the cells.
In copious amounts, it can kill cells. I don't know really what the mechanics are for when it's used properly, like actually used to treat gout. I don't know like how it works. That would have been a good thing to research, but I did not, alas.
I think it caused, I remember thinking that'd be a great way to kill someone.
But they tested for it.
They tested for colchicine?
Maybe. I don't know.
Wow.
You'll have to listen to the rest of the podcast to find out. Did they test for it?
Pay $5 to get access.
So this anonymous source is saying like He's been researching colchicine. His employer tells investigators none of Connor's work includes the research of colchicine. Nothing that he's doing requires him to be looking up colchicine. Like, I don't know why he was doing that. Connor's laptop over at the University of Kansas was taken in by investigators. And wouldn't you know, it showed suspicious searches on August 5th. Internet browsing history. Can it be used in court? Police track package delivery. Oil of wintergreen, which is toxic and can be fatal if someone were to overdose. So
Wintergreen?
Oil of wintergreen.
Like the Christmas tree?
I don't know. And poisons. Lethal doses specifically for individuals weighing approximately 120 pounds. And guess who was about 120 pounds? On August 10th, his searches continued. Online pharmacy. He also looked up the conversion of 120 pounds into kilograms. So he decides.
It's just too much. He could have just used this calculator on his phone.
I know. Also, he searched internet browsing history. Can it be used in court? Like, you find the answer to that, and you still make these searches. That's what I don't understand. I really don't understand. On your work computer, like, I mean, they could have taken his home computer as well, but like, really? Why would you ever do that?
Yeah, you don't use your work computer for anything besides work.
So he decides on colchicine and he purchases it online. That same day, Connor makes Betty a weird smoothie, and Betty was drinking it with her friend, and Betty was like, taste this. This is disgusting. And the friend tastes it, and the two start joking that, haha, Connor's trying to poison you or something. It was gross, so they threw it out.
Foiled.
Mm-hmm. Side note, friend was like, for him to even have made the smoothie for her in the first place was out of character. Like, he never did that kind of thing for her. So it was suspicious.
It was suspicious.
So on August 15th, Connor made Betty an alcoholic drink, that same alcoholic drink that we talked about earlier. And this was the night before she ended up in the hospital. Of course, police also find a $450,000 life insurance payment in Connor's bank account. On October 18th, the autopsy done on Betty's body showed colchicine present in her blood and urine. The ME determines Betty's cause of death to be colchicine toxicity, and they ruled her death a homicide.
Wow.
Betty has no history of gout, and she did not receive any gout while she was hospitalized. So now let's talk about the symptoms of colchicine toxicity. They include significant vomiting and diarrhea, hypovolemic shock, which is like when you have been having so much output, such as, significant diarrhea, that your body goes in shock because it doesn't have enough blood circulating in the body. And basically, if your organs and cells aren't getting this blood flow, they're going to shut down. They're going to die, or at least sustain some damage. So this is exactly what happened to Betty. Connor was arrested on October 20th, 2 months after Betty's murder, and he was charged with second-degree murder. Then it was upped to first-degree murder. He's in jail awaiting trial. He's in on like $1 million or so bond. I think it's more than $1 million, but
good.
So I don't think he's going to be getting out of jail anytime soon. If he is convicted on the first-degree murder charge, he will spend life in prison without possibility of parole.
Good.
Yes, good. And then I just wanted to talk more about Betty. Sarah, her friend, said, I just missed my best friend. I just miss my best friend. She was the most beautiful person, intelligent, gave 100% at her job. And even when she was late, it was because she was buying things, treats for people. She just cared really deeply about people, always letting everyone know how much she loved them. Sarah arranged a GoFundMe for legal costs and memorial costs, meals, bills to make things easier for Betty's family as they cope with their enormous loss. I've also linked the GoFundMe link in the show notes if you would like to donate.
Moral of the story, and this is the last time I'm going to say this because this is the 5,000th time I've been trying to put this out here into the airwaves. Do not date men or women who work in poison control because they have intimate knowledge of poisons and that they can kill you more easily.
And may Betty get justice. So let's call it the time of death is 1916. That is 7:16 p.m. for those of you who do not use military time.
Be careful calling poison control.
Oh my God. No, actually, poison control is a great resource. I don't think the poison control is the problem here.
It's Connor.
But it does give you intimate knowledge of...
But they can poison you probably better than anyone else.
Okay, everyone. Bye.
Bye. I sounded so cute when I said that.